So, in general, just this chapter, your chapter 16, he's speaking about the service of God by the Benoni. The Benoni is the one that has full control of his animal soul, and as soon as the animal soul might appear in his thoughts, he's able to push those thoughts out. But it speaks about his service of how he essentially is one with God, especially when he prays, especially when he studies Torah or when he does mitzvot, during those acts that bind us to God. He's one with God. It means that he's not there just with his actions, but he's there also with his heart, with his feelings. And in many ways, this is achieved by different methods of the Benoni that we spoke about. One of them is the meditation of the awesomeness of God. And there were some others. But when Benoni also is engaged in that act or in that mitzvah, then his entire self shows up. And that's really what the point is here. Now, on the other hand, and there's almost like a paradox here, because on the other hand, as one as we can be with God, as long as we are finite beings, as long as we are human beings, or as Rabbi Steinsaltz would often say, we're spiritual beings in a human experience. Many people think the opposite, that we're human beings in spiritual experiences sometimes. It's the opposite. We are essentially spiritual beings in human experience. So as long as we have that human experience, we're limited because God is infinite and we're finite. This is also why, just to connect it to the Torah, this is why God told Moses, Lo yira'ani adam v'chai, that a man who's limited, again, who's finite, will not be able to see God and live. To see God, we almost have to get rid of that finite being. We cannot be in a body anymore, because the body is what separates us. But the Benoni, besides the separation of the body, is one with God, with the rest of his being. And there's a part of him that will never be able to grasp God. It's like there's a part of us that will never be able to grasp God. But everything else is taken care of. So that's really the big thought. And this is achievable because it's the service of the Benoni. Let's remember, we can all become Benonis. That's why this book was written, Tanya, which is called Sefer Shebenonim. This is achievable by everybody. Yes, we'll always have a body, a finite beings that will separate us from God and not enable us to understand Him or to connect with Him 100%, but we can still connect with Him 90% or whatever the percentage is through the rest of our human experience, our emotions, our feelings, our minds, our actions, and so on. Okay, let's continue here, middle of page 70. Does anyone want to read?
I can read.
Please, thank you, Andrea. Go for it.
Okay. Therefore, it is proper for them to embrace him with their whole heart, soul, and might. And to fulfill the verse, you shall love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And what is this embrace that enables one to attach and unite himself with God so completely? Which means the fulfillment of the 613 commandments in act, speech, and thought, the last being comprehension and knowledge of Torah, as explained above. Consequently, when the Bayani ponders the subject in the recesses of his heart's and mind's understanding.
Right. Just finish that paragraph here in order.
Okay. In order for one's thinking to be substantive, a casual review is insufficient. One must seek ever greater clarity and depth. He must unite with the subjects that he studies in the recesses of his heart and mind's understanding, and not merely pay lip service.
Right. So that oneness again has to happen with everything, every fiber of our being. And it's best expressed here in this verse that we say every day, 3 times a day, in the morning, in the evening, and before we go to sleep. The verse from the Shema, that we should love God with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our might. Now, all our heart and all our soul we can understand. The Talmud says all our heart is with all our love and fear, but with every emotion that we have. All our soul is that we are even willing to give up our lives for God. That's the definition of the Talmud, of with all our soul. But what does it mean with all our might? Bechol me'odecha. What does it mean with all our might? So Rashi says with all our money, that we're willing to give up all of our money, all of our possessions for God. Rabbi Steinsaltz would say something very powerful, which is based really on Kabbalistic thought, and that is that when we say that we are willing to love God with all our might, that is that even when we think we've reached our maximum, we've given everything to God, whether it's our every iota of emotion, every iota of self-sacrifice, or every iota of money, it's still, we know that it's still not enough and we want to give more. That more is with all our might. It's almost like, when we can feel that at least in the physical realm. Sometimes you exercise and you think that's it. I've given everything I've got. But you still stay and you still exercise, or you still stay in that marathon and you still continue on. That is that bechol meodecha, with all your might, doing even more than what you can possibly think, that fathom that you're capable of, even more than that. That is what bechol meodecha, which is that extra mile, that extra effort that is almost superhuman. Now, in many ways, this explains also why the Benoni is a Benoni, and why that oneness exists by the Benoni. Because a person who's willing to serve God bechol meodecha is really a person that goes beyond his self, that recognizes that he is not the one that counts, that it's God, it's all about God. And therefore, even if I have to sacrifice myself and go that extra mile, or even more than that, I'm willing to do that, because at the end of the day, it's got nothing to do with me. You see, b'chol levavcha, with all your heart, with all your soul, still has a lot to do with you. With all your heart is your emotions. With all your soul is your sacrifice. B'chol meodecha is completely nothing. It's beyond you. It's that extra mile, as they say, but it's much more than that. I don't like that expression. It's that extra 100 miles. It's going all the way. It's losing yourself completely. Then you have proven that you're one with God, because now it's not about you and your emotions or you and your sacrifice. It's not about you. The you doesn't even exist there. So that's really what Bechol Meodecha is. And I just want to add, but it's interesting because just to analyze the Hebrew, Bechol Levavcha means your heart. Nafshecha means your being, not your soul. It's not such an accurate expression, because soul is neshama. Nafshecha really refers to your being. So you're willing to sacrifice your being. Me'odecha, me'od in Hebrew is an interesting word, because it's very often translated as very. And that word appears in other places in the Torah too. Me'od, right? People say that. And yo'evotcha me'od, I love you a lot. Right? Much. But if you break down, as the Kabbalists do, this word of me'od, it's an interesting word, because it has the numerical value of ma, which means what? 45 and 45. Me'od is a numerical value of 45, and ma is the numerical value of 45. And ma means that you really retort to the nothingness that is essentially your foundation of creation. God created us something from nothing. And then nothingness is where you say, okay, I am nothing. I'm completely nothing. I'm all God. If God wants to take me away today, he takes me away. I retort to nothingness. But it's that recognition that the only thing that I really am is God. It's not me. My I is zero, is ma, is what. That is what Bechol Meodecha really means. Therefore, it's not about me at all. It's about God completely, from A to Z. And I'm not willing to even talk about me, to even think about me. And therefore, I can go the extra mile, the extra 10 miles, the extra 100 miles, because it's not me. It's not me and my emotions. It's not me and my sacrifice. Again, it's ma. I'm nothing. It's all about God. And to him, I'll give everything, even that which I think I don't have. So Meodecha is not just a lot, not just very much, but again, it's recognizing that Ein od milvado, as we say in prayer, there's nothing else but God, that I doesn't even exist. And therefore, I am completely willing to give everything plus more to God, that I doesn't exist. That's the deeper meaning of ma, of me'odecha. It's that what.
So, Rabbi, if I understand you
Yes,
correctly, you're saying it's not just going above and beyond, but to reach the point of nullifying myself,
that's right.
right?
Yeah, very good. That's right. In Hasidic thought, it's called, there's one word for it. It's called, and the Tanya uses it, it's called bitul, nullification, the word that you just used. I'm completely nullified. I have none, no, no self-desire, no self-motive, no self. I'm
Mhm.
completely nullified. Now, if we want to go a little bit deeper, but this is what this class is all about, it's interesting because the other, mainly, I mean, there are other places too, but the other place in which this word is used classically in Torah thought is in halacha, in Jewish law, because as many of you may know, if a drop of milk falls into a pot of meat, if there's 60 times the amount of meat against a drop of milk, then you're allowed to have the pot of meat because it's what's called batel b'shishim, same word, bitul, batel. It's nullified by 60 times the amount of meat against a drop of milk. Now, what's interesting is that that word, especially in this context, does not just mean that there's 60 times the amount of meat against the milk, but it really means that the milk, what happens to a drop of milk? The drop of milk, even scientifically, is not a drop of milk anymore. It becomes one with meat. If you had to taste that drop of milk when it is nullified by 60 times the amount of meat, it tastes like meat. It's transformed itself. It's become one with the pot of meat. And therefore, it can be eaten. Otherwise, it will be a mixture of meat and milk. But the drop of milk itself is now meat because it's 60 times the amount. So it's batel. In many ways, that's how we relate to our nullification towards God. That it's not, God forbid, that that's it, we've killed ourselves. Quite the opposite. We've returned to our true selves by that nullification. That we taste like God, we become God. We are one with God to the point that there's no ego, no iota of I. There's no selfishness, there's no self. That's what true nullification means. That I become one with my inner source, which is God. So it's batel not in a way of self-deprecation. The opposite. It's in a way of transformation that I've become one with God. That's what batel really means. So it's not that's why the translation of nullification doesn't ring the right bell. It's more transformation.
So I become insignificant, you would say?
Becoming really God, becoming who we are in essence, the ma, the nothing, that is really saying that the human side of me is non-existence. It's complete nullified because I've returned to my divine side of me. Chelek Elokam Imal Mamash, every one of us is that particle of God within us, that soul. And that soul then becomes one with God with zero interruption, with zero hindrance. So that's really what it means. Practically, what does that mean? Practically means that all my thoughts are thoughts that God would want me to have. All my words, all my speech is a speech that God would want me to have. And all my actions are completely aligned with God. Those three garments that the Tanya speaks about so often, as the Tanya just spoke about now, are completely one with God. I don't even have a moment of I. Very hard to achieve. Again, it's 24/7, right? Even when I sleep, I'm one with God. Even when I eat, I'm not doing it for self-pleasure. I'm one with God. It's even everything that I do is it's not me. There's no me involved. There's what? There's nothingness. It's only God. It's that bitul. It's that oneness with God. I mean, that's why it's Benoni is a very hard status to achieve, but it's still doable. I know that I had the privilege of knowing a man in Jerusalem by the name of Rabbi Moshe Weber, who was truly one of the most righteous people you would ever meet. but apparently the Lubavitcher Rebbe said that he was a Benoni. And when you observed him, I was young. I was a young teenager, but I loved observing people like that. And you would see that really the man had zero ego, zero. Everything that he did, everything that he said, everything that he even thought, and you could tell that he was always in another world. He was one with God. There was no I. He was Batel. He had returned to that oneness by nullifying, by going to the Ma, making every human experience or every human iota of his a nothing. So maybe we can't do it 24/7. At least I can't do it 24/7. Probably some of you or all of you can. But we can try to do it at least an hour a day or 2 hours a day. Or if we are doing it 2 hours a day, maybe increase 3 hours a day. That's what it's all about. Anyhow. Okay, let's continue. But I'd love to hear more of your words and comments and ideas. So please feel free to speak your minds, as we always say. Okay, otherwise, let's continue here. Bottom of page 70. Andrea, you want
With
to?
a,
Yeah,
oh yeah,
go ahead.
with an unanimity of mouth and heart, in that he upholds by word of mouth that which has been resolved in the understanding of his heart and mind, namely to direct his desires towards the divine Torah, meditating on it by day and night in oral study, while his hands and other bodily organs carry out the commandments in accordance with the resolution of his heart's and mind's understanding. One must be prepared to shift from thoughts and feelings to word and deed. In the abstract, serving God could make good sense, but light years can separate the notion from what one actually does. The individual needs to take his internal experiences to heart and resolve them to make them real.
Right, because we can feel God, we can think God, we can be ecstatic with God, but if the deeds are not there, if it doesn't translate to deed, then it really doesn't mean anything. So that oneness with God has to appear in all three garments, like we said, thought, speech, and action. And action is really what counts most, as we've often said. So there are many people who live, on top of mountains and meditate all day, and that's great, fine. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean much because it needs to transform our very actions. And I will say more than that. The realm of feelings and the realm of thoughts are self realms. The realm of actions are other realms, right? When I act, I'm actually impacting the world. So I'm already coming out from my own self bubble to the world. When I'm acting towards someone else, I'm impacting, again, someone else. The feelings and the thoughts are to me alone. And therefore, they don't mean much. And they still are stuck in that I bubble. There's no ma, there's no nothingness there. It's only truly actions that take me out of my I bubble to the you, to the we bubble. And therefore, actions are so much more important, really, in many ways, than thought or speech, or thought and feelings, as is explained here. Speech is also a type of connection with others, but certainly thought and feelings. And action, therefore, as the ethics of our fathers teaches us, that the deed is the most important. Now, I will say more than that. It's just interesting because I don't want to deviate too much, but I think it's an important point because the thought, the feelings, and the action need to appear in the three dimensions that we live in. It says that when God gave us the Torah, that the mountain was filled with smoke, Ashan. Now, the Kabbalist in the Zohar, it says that Ashan is really an acronym for three Hebrew words. And those three Hebrew words really relate to the three dimensions that we all live in at every time, at every moment of our lives. Ayin, Ashan is Ayin Shin Nun. Ayin stands for Olam, the world or space. Shin stands for Shana, which means time, year. Shana means year, but relates to time, dimension of time. And Nun stands for Nefesh, which is the dimension of the psyche or the being. So wherever we are, even right now, at this moment, we are in a specific place, we are in a specific time, and we are specific souls. Sometimes we're alone with our own souls, with our own psyche and being. Sometimes we're with others. Now, the only true way to affect those three dimensions, space, time may be a little less, but still, and the being, the nefesh, is really through actions. Yes, thoughts and feelings can change things within, but if we want to affect the dimensions that we live in, Ashan, all those three dimensions that we're constantly living in, which is really the purpose of the Torah, and therefore of the giving of the Torah, and therefore it appears then, that notion appears then we have to do that through action. World will only be affected when we start to act. If it stays in our thoughts and our feelings, it's not going to be affected much. Our time, the value of our time will only be maximized if we fill it with action. And again, our beings and the beings of others will only be lifted and truly one with God, again, if we are action oriented. So all three dimensions benefit most from those actions, and that's why there's so much emphasis on action too.